Good afternoon. I'm here with Sally, who's the Contract Director for Serco, and she's going to share with us a presentation talking about the organisation, talking about the different business functions, and telling us a little bit about her own career pathway. So I'm going to hand over to Sally, who's going to take control of the screen. Sally, over to you.
Excellent. Thank you. Oh, I've gone straight on to the second slide. I'm going to start with this one, actually. So as Lorna said, I wanted to talk to you a little bit about Serco and the company, and a little bit about what Serco does, to give you a bit of context, a little bit about my career journey, how I've ended up in doing what I'm doing today, and then a little bit about the maritime services kind of industry and some of the jobs that are available, to give you a little bit of an idea about some of the opportunities that you have in the maritime industry, which is something that I think is personally really exciting. So Serco are an international company with about 55,000 people employed within it. So a really big international global company, which is a really interesting space to kind of to be in, to work for them. I've worked for them for 15 years. So we mainly deliver services to the government. So we're sort of called a government outsourcer, and we deliver services to the government in areas like justice and immigration, and that's things like prisons and asylum housing. We work in the health sector, so we run hospitals, and we run catering and portering services in hospitals. We have also a big operation within what they call citizen services, and that's sort of services for people. So that's things like we do quite a lot of refuse collection, so those sort of bin men services that some of you will see, and then things like we're quite heavily involved in the track and trace system that the government has been running. So really those services to the government. And then we also work quite a lot in defence. We've got a very big defence area of our business, and that's where maritime services sit. So that kind of gives you a little bit of an idea about what Serco does. And as I say, I've worked for Serco for 15 years, which I don't know if that's quite unusual now, but I think because of the breadth and the different things that they do, there's always been so many different things that I've been able to get involved in that I've actually sort of never felt the need to leave. So if I then talk to you a little bit about my job and what I do. So I'm contract director for the provision of marine services. So what does that really mean? So essentially, I'm responsible for a team of about 650 people, and of those 650 people, over 80% of them are afloat on vessels. And then I'm also responsible for all of the management team and all of the support functions that keep us running like a business. We deliver services in the main to the Royal Navy, so we are providing services to them, and it's my job to make sure that we meet all of our obligations. So everything that the Royal Navy needs us to do, I'm there to make sure that happens, and also to make sure that it happens safely. So as you may be aware, in maritime, there's a lot of regulation and compliance that you have to make sure that you are in line with. So it's making sure we deliver our services safely, and then essentially we also run like a little business. So I have to make sure that we're making money and paying our people and doing all of the kind of support to making sure that we deliver our contract to the government. So that's a little bit about sort of what my job entails. So in terms of how I got to do what I'm doing today, I actually, what would they have said about me at school? Probably a little bit of could do better, probably a little bit chatty, and definitely very nosy. That was something that came out quite a lot from my sort of school reports. But I sort of enjoyed school. It was absolutely fine. I went on to do business studies at university. I did that in Bristol. It was something that was really broad, and I thought, you know, I was quite interested in that, so I went on to do that. And then my first job, I went into retail. So I actually worked for House of Fraser in the retail sector, and then Ted Baker. And I qualified as an accountant because that was being offered to me as part of the job that I went in to do as sort of a studying accountant. So that's where I started. When I came to Serco, I always worked in the support function. So I was always in finance and commercial. So using my background as an accountant. And then about 5 years ago, when I came into the maritime part of the business and worked as a finance person in maritime, I spent about 5 years getting to know the business and just really sort of was so inspired by the maritime part of the business that I wanted to then move into actually running it. So I've sort of moved away from my finance background and into sort of what you'd call frontline operations, actually delivering a service to a customer. So quite a big change. But really kind of yeah, I didn't want to leave the maritime part of the business and wanted to carry on doing that. So it's just a little bit about me and my kind of personal career journey. So I'm going to see if I can get my next slide. So this is Serco's global maritime footprint. So what you might find if you learn a little bit more about the maritime industry is quite often the services and the it's all sort of global, because it often involves quite a lot of sort of traveling, and obviously being an island nation and with such an important role that maritime plays for the UK, but actually globally maritime is an absolutely enormous industry, and it's one of the things that actually can tweak your interest if you're sort of wanting to look more widely. So in terms of Serco's maritime footprint, up on the right hand side, that's what the UK footprint looks like. So as I said, I've got about 650 people, and we've also got about just over 100 vessels that support the Royal Navy, and we are based kind of so I've got people all over the UK, in the naval base in Portsmouth, down in the naval base in Devonport. We've got 2 sites up in Scotland, in Greenock and Faslane. So we're on the nuclear naval base in Faslane, and then right up at the top, we also support the British Underwater Testing Centre, which is up right up in the Kyle of Lockouch. So a very sort of geographical spread across the country. And then just a little bit about, you know, what do we actually do for the Royal Navy as part of the contract that I look after. So if you think about the big naval ships coming in and out of the ports, they can't do that under their own steam. So they need a towage suite of anything between 4 and 6 to bring these really large assets in and out of the ports. So one of the really familiar sort of pictures that you may see is actually the big aircraft carrier Queen Elizabeth with about 6 tugs around her. So those tugs will be Serco tugs. So the towage is a significant part of what we do. But then over and above that, we do all sorts of other things like fuel supplies, ammunitioning supplies. We take pilots on and off, or passengers on and off. So really it's kind of the support services that the Navy need when they're in port in those areas. And then we've got a wider, what we call our out of port service, which is mainly two larger vessels, and they go worldwide, supporting the Navy in their training. So at the moment, I've got SD Victoria, which is one of our large worldwide training ships, and she is on her way to Key West in Florida to support the Navy training. So we do sort of, you know, we're focused both in the UK footprint, but also we go worldwide. So it's really fascinating for the people that come into our business to be able to kind of see the span of support that we provide to the Royal Navy. And then more widely across America, Canada and Australia, we've got some similar contracts. So our contract in Australia is relatively similar to the one that we've got in the UK, in that it supports the Royal Australian Navy in its harbour movements and its training. And then in the US and Canada, we actually have a slightly more of a design engineering emphasis and sort of through life support in terms of the support to both the US and the Canadian Navy. So again, a government focus for us, but a worldwide footprint. So I'm just going to go on to the next slide, which I think is going to build actually as I talk. But one of the things that I think it's really exciting, and one of the things that's worth talking about, is demonstrating the range of careers that there are in maritime. And so as this builds, you can see that here I've separated it into ashore roles. So, you know, you can broadly separate this into sort of feet on the ground, as in land, and afloat roles. So, you know, actually being on a vessel. And then on the other side, you've then got the support support roles and the functions that sit all of around that and sort of enable that to happen. So I won't read through each individual role, and actually the next slide that I've got talks a little bit about the career path that you can have in an afloat role, but I'll just talk a little bit about the ashore roles and what that covers. So for us as an operation, not only do we need to have the people who are driving the boats, we also have to make sure we've got the technical skills to keep them working. We've actually got quite a mixed fleet, and some of it's quite old, so there's some really important engineering capability that we need to have to keep all of that going. And then you've got all of the things like operations managers and controllers. So we deliver about 14,000 tasks a year, and making sure we've got the right vessels in the right place with the right people. And some of these are really people jobs, you know, making sure that everybody understands what they're doing and how they're going to do it. So there's some of the ashore roles. And then I talked a little bit about how important the health, safety and quality piece is, but certainly, you know, health and safety and that regulatory compliance, so making sure you're doing stuff in line with the maritime law is really important. And then we've got other things like divers, so linked with the kind of the maritime industry. Often you have to get people to go and look at the underside of hulls, or you might send them to look at a particular mooring. And so we've actually got a team of divers, an absolutely great team of divers. And so that kind of covers some of the ashore roles. I'll talk a bit about the afloat roles in the next slide, and then the support functions. You know, if you've got an interest which maybe sits in HR, so you're really interested in what makes people tick and how to get people organised, you know, there are support functions that are really critical to getting this kind of operation up and running as well. And then things like, you know, IT support, health and safety, growth. So there's a lot of new business requirements. So all of those kind of standard business capability that you might have in also different things, you know, happen in this industry, and are also really critical for the maritime industry to continue to grow and to be part of kind of the future of this country. So that's a little bit about the variety of roles. So if I go on to the next slide, hang on a second, there's a few extra ones popping onto the bottom there. So this is really kind of a picture which talks about the pathway that you can go from a deck apprentice all the way to a master unlimited, and along that scale there, that's sort of the amount of years. But what this is kind of really mainly trying to show is that there is quite a well-defined career path if you want to join and if you want to progress through that. And most maritime organisations and industries will do this as part of sort of, you know, an apprenticeship and then on the job training. So it's really well defined, and all of the training that you can do is on the job and based on the experience that you are gaining at sea and through the other kind of those avenues as well. So that kind of ability to be able to do a job and to kind of advance through a career and be paid whilst you're doing that. So a deck apprentice will come on board with very little experience, just a little bit of enthusiasm and commitment is what is asked of sort of that apprentice level. And you would be learning things like basic rope handling, basic seamanship skills, basic fire safety, and there's as I say, there's quite a defined things that you would do as an apprentice to get those basic seagoing skills, and that takes approximately 2 years. And then what you move on to next is an able seafarer, so you just become more competent and more experienced, and you may be looking after a deck apprentice and sharing your experiences, and that can take anywhere between 4 years, and some of this will depend on the size of vessel that you would want to go and do it on. You would then move on to boat masters and masters, and again, some of these are whether you want to work on in coastal waters or if you want to work worldwide. You could go on to be a chief mate, right. So we're looking at sort of 10 years in. And then ultimately, if you wanted to go all the way to the end of that pathway, you could become what's called a Master Unlimited. And that means that you are competent at operating any vessel of any size anywhere in the world. And the quite useful thing about this is that you can sort of stop and start it, and you can structure it in a way that suits you, and whether that's your own personal circumstances or your kind of how far you want to go with it. So I just wanted to give that kind of that idea around the structure of the particular kind of apprentice to master role. And I think these presentations are going to become available to you, so you can sort of have a look at that if you want to. So this is really just a little bit about some information that we've taken from our apprentices. So we do run an apprenticeship scheme at Serco. In fact, we run an apprenticeship scheme quite broadly in Serco across the whole business, but particularly in Maritime, we've been taking on deck apprentices and technical apprentices for the last few years. And we've got some really amazing stories about people who have started as an apprenticeship and then gone through and are still working within the company, and have really valued kind of that experience, and are also really keen to talk about it, to encourage other people to look at the maritime industry and to look at apprenticeships as a really good career opportunity. So I won't read out all of those particular sort of statements, but really sort of highlighting the fact that you have got the chance to earn money as you're working. I think it really appeals, particularly working sort of afloat, that you're not 100% office based, so people that want to be out and about using your hands and kind of getting that a different kind of role, and working as part of a team. I think that's the other thing that really comes through, because when you're working on vessels, you know, the people around you are really important for your safety, but also it's just that working part of a team. And frankly, everybody wants to enjoy their job. You know, you spend an awful lot of time at work, so finding something that you want to do is really valuable, really. So I think that is my last slide. So the only other thing that I was going to sort of offer as a bit of a couple of closing statements. If you're interested in things like, the kind of the future environmental impact, one of the other things that, the maritime industry is having to think very carefully about is the impact of the carbon emissions. So if that's a slant that you think, is really important, and some of looking at the principles of things that are important to you as a person should drive what you want to go into at work, because ultimately you'll end up really enjoying it. So maritime industry have got a long way to go in terms of understanding their environmental impact. And then the other thing is that if as an example you're really interested in IT or in kind of like future innovation, that's another area that the maritime industry, with autonomous vessels and really interesting sonar technology, if technology is your thing, the maritime industry have got a huge amount of technology and innovation within the space to ultimately perhaps lessen the impact of the environment as well. So that's the other point. And it really is something that is open to everybody. So it is historically, I think it's been a very male dominated industry, but that is starting to change. And whether you're looking at afloat roles or ashore roles, that is absolutely open to everybody. So male and female, that gender diversity is starting to change within the environment. And I think that's really, really important. So I would encourage anybody who's interested to really think about that. And I think then sort of closing thoughts just on careers in general is just, be really inquisitive. There are lots of doors in lots of different areas that will be open to you. So, talk to people about it, ask questions, have an open mind, and actually, your enthusiasm and that is what will get you an awful lot of the way. Your attitude to kind of having a go and being interested is something that all workplaces are looking for. So thank you. That's kind of what I wanted to share with you. And if anybody's got any questions, I'm sure that they can feed them through, and would be more than happy to answer any of them. Thank you very much.